Yom Hashem Moshe Lemor, Ato Daber al Bnei Yisrael. You should speak. It doesn't say Daber. Ato Daber. Ato Daber al Bnei Yisrael. Lemor. You should speak to the Bnei Yisrael saying, Achas Shabsos Tishporu. However, you must keep my Shabbos. We're speaking about over here the Melechas HaMishkan, the building the Mishkan. Vosli Migdosh of Shachanti B'tocham. This is the ultimate moment we will want to be reinstated, fully reinstated, that the Shekhinah should dwell in our midst. You would think that the Melechas HaMishkan, all this creative activity, since it's for the sake of what? For the Shekhinah, maybe that's an overriding factor. We're not bound by the restrictions of Shabbos. Hashem said to Moshe, you tell them, they must keep my Shabbos. Meaning the building in Mishkan does not override Shabbos. Because it is a sign between myself and you, for all generations. Ladas. To know. Who to know? Who should know this? Kini Hashem Bekadishchem. I am Hashem who sanctifies you. Let's see Rashi. Ato te'aber al bnei Yisrael. Ato. Api shivkarticho l'tzavosa melechas mishkan. Although I had commanded you to instruct them on the Melechas Mishkan, the creative activity to build the Mishkan, al yekel beinecho litchos as a Shabbos. Do not take it lightly, and therefore the Shabbos should be overridden. For that malacha, for the objective of building Mishkan, that's not sufficient reason that the Shabbos should be what? Should be overridden. All of which says when they were told to bring the various materials and everything, within a day, everything was brought. There was a level of alacrity which indicated a certain positiveness. The Jews, regardless of the amount of material and the cost of the material and the value, within moments, it was put together. They had all the material. It was dayim v'hoser. There was enough even beyond that. So you would think, if they want to do the mitzvah with such alacrity, nevertheless, Shabbos cannot be overridden for the sake of the Mishkan. Shabbos Mishkan. Now, it says, although you're redufin bizrisa melocha, although you're being hurried and you're being overwhelmed because of the importance of the moment, nevertheless, you should not override Shabbos. First of all, what is one thing after another? What is redufin's reason? Whose rizus hamlocha? You're not permitted. A person wants to do a mitzvah. He does it with alacrity, but he wants to blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And the only way you can blow the shofar, you have to violate Yom Tov. Are you permitted? You're not permitted. The Gemara Mishnah says in Rosh Hashanah, if you have a shofar in a tree, and you have to climb a tree to retrieve the shofar, rabbinically, you're not permitted to climb a tree on Shabbos. We'd have it's a Mishnah at the end of Be'ah, because there's a concern that as you climb, you may break off a branch. So rabbinically, you're not permitted to climb the tree. As important as shofar is, for rabbinic fence, one doesn't blow the shofar as much as you want to blow that shofar. What is redufin whose reason l'melechas mishkan? You should say, as important as the Mishkan is, it's not an overriding fact. What's this rizus? Apish redufin bizrisus hamlocha. So I think over here, it doesn't mean to say, because they're doing it bizrisus, that's a reason. It's why are they redufin bizrizis ha'melacha? Why? Understanding the value of the moment. The value is so the Shekhinah should be reinstated. So for the sake of the Shekhinah, maybe that's an overriding factor. Because there's a question which is asked. Rameir Simcha asked this question. Once the Mishkan was built, there were many activities that were done that are not permitted on a personal level. For instance, every day you brought the communal offerings. They slaughtered, they stripped its hide, they burnt it, they kindled, they did many things. Why is it permitted? The answer is because it's what? It's for the sake of Hashem. When you do it for God, that's an overriding factor. You can't kindle fire in your communities, but in the Beis HaMikdash, you kindle fire. So if that's the case, the objective building the Mishkan is for the Shekhinah. So if that's the case, why doesn't it supersede the Shabbos? But it's a question, but that would be the consideration. Even though you're doing with such a level of alacrity and zeal, because you want the Shekhinah to be reinstated in your midst, so it's clear you're doing it only for Hashem. It's not for yourself. Nevertheless, it's not an overriding factor. That's the redufin. But the question is, why not? Once the Mishkan was built, there were many malachos, many creative activities, which are not permitted on a personal level, permitted there. So why can't you build the Mishkan? Why is to build the Mishkan should also be permitted? So I think, if I remember correctly, Rameir Simcha answers, once the Shekhinah is in our midst, as a result of that, it's obvious that the activity that you're doing is for the sake of the Shekhinah. It's for the sake of God. This is creating the setting for the Shekhinah to enter. This is almost, we're talking like a Hersha mitzvah. This is to introduce, to create the setting for the Shekhinah. It's too early. It has to be obvious beyond doubt. The Shekhinah is here. It's within the context of the function of Hashem and Amit. It's for Hashem. Until the Shekhinah is there, it's not that obvious. As a result of that, it doesn't override the Shabbos for that reason. What's ato to daber? It said daber. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu is what? Is communicating the whole Torah to us. What ato, it seems to be there's an emphasis, you must speak. You must tell them don't. There's no Rechaim HaKodesh, not here, explains later that you find by the Melech Mishkan, by the building Mishkan, everything was commanded to Moshe Rabbeinu that he should do it. And everything that was done, every Jew was a shliach of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was delegated by Moshe, but they represented him. Their obligation was to be the Moshe shliach to build the Mishkan. So he explains why. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that Moshe Rabbeinu should be the beneficiary of the ultimate mitzvah of building the Mishkan. So as a result of it, how is he to be the beneficiary? Although he did not participate in the only thing he did was he erected the Mishkan. Because it says later that they weren't able to erect the Mishkan. Physically, it was too heavy. And they tried to erect it, and they weren't able to. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you just put your hands under the beams, and they're going to rise by themselves. Although, and it says Moshe Rabbeinu later, he was a little disappointed that he did not participate in Melech Mishkan, like we find by the Nesiim. The Nesiim did not participate in Melech Mishkan until the last moment, and they're openly castigated for it. Of course, why did they do it? Because they said, whatever's lacking, we'll complete. The only thing they gave in the Nesiim, they contributed with the Avnei Shov and Avnei Miluim, the precious stones. And they're criticized for this, because how do you say, I'll wait? What would be if everything would have done without your participation? Moshe Rabbeinu did not participate. Did not participate. Why? And this we discussed, because Moshe Rabbeinu said that if I participate, I may be denying another Jew the opportunity to do a mitzvah. Let them do what they have to do, and whatever's lacking, I'll fill in what's lacking. Those are Moshe Rabbeinu's words. Because it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to Moshe and he sees that he's down. And Hashem says, why are you down? Because I didn't participate in Lechsa Mishkan. He says, why not? Because I wanted everybody to do what they have to do, and whatever is lacking, I will fill in the shortfall. I'll fill it in. So what Moshe said, what the Nisim said, of verbatim what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Why did they bring the Avnim Lu Avni Shom at the end? They said, whatever's lacking, we'll bring what's missing, what's lacking. They're criticized because the word Nisim is written deleted, the Yud is deleted, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the Midrash quotes a pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu is extolled and praised for this, that he didn't want to deny a Jew the opportunity to participate. I mean, you realize it's not a two-track system here. Moshe Rabbeinu is the favorite. He praises him for this, and the Nisim are castigated for this. They're criticized by the Yud in Nisim being deleted to indicate, regardless of how precious it was, because they fell short, they didn't come immediately, and they took a chance they could have been denied the participation. They're criticized for this. Moshe Rabbeinu did not participate because of the same reason. And he's extolled, he's praised for this. Why? We find something very interesting. If you would write a Sefer Torah, and you'd have a letter to be written into the Sefer Torah, and Moshe Rabbeinu would be the one who would write that letter, would you forget about Moshe Rabbeinu? Would you want him to participate in the writing of your Sefer Torah? There's no question. Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest Jew ever lived. Here, they're given a commandment, build the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu did not participate in the building. It's completed. They tried to erect it. And physically, humanly, they couldn't erect it because only through a miracle, because of the weight of the beams. I mean, but it seems to be, if they could have, they would have forgotten about Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, how do you build a Mishkan, which the objective is for this reason? And Moshe Rabbeinu brought it about through a supplication, because initially they would be destroyed. How do you forget about Moshe Rabbeinu? They forgot about it. Not in the participation, and even if they could have taken it all the way to have it fully erected, they would have done that also. Hashem said, no, you people will not erect it. Because Moshe Rabbeinu has to be involved in the what? In the erection of the Mishkan. Right? How do you forget about Moshe Rabbeinu? Seems to be it's not in any way indicated it's criticism on Klal Yisrael. That they forgot about Moshe Rabbeinu. But firstly, how could you forget about Moshe Rabbeinu? Being such an important Jew, just his participation would mean everything in the world. Minimally, to erect it. Regarding the building, okay, that's one thing. In terms of the artisanship, good. But what about the erection? After they didn't think of Moshe Rabbeinu, it was seen as something very positive, not as something negative. In terms of Klal Yisrael, why? Moshe Rabbeinu says, why do we need a Mishkan? Because Hashem says, "V'osli bigdash u'shchanti b'tocha." As a result of Chet Egel, although we were forgiven, and we were given Luchas Shnios, we're given the second set of tablets, quoting again. However, to be fully reinstated, that's only with what? With the building of the Mishkan. When it was finally erected. After it was erected, as we'll read later, the Shekhinah entered. The Jews, they prostrated themselves when they saw the Shekhinah coming back into their midst. If a person, his life's at stake, and you're waiting for that moment, and that moment is the most important moment of your existence, the behavior of the Jew, that all that mattered was they should be reinstated, that's the reason why they didn't think about Moshe Rabbeinu. They thought about themselves. What was themselves? We want to have a relationship. We want to be fully back where we should have been. Unfortunately, we made the mistake with Chet Egel. So that they forgot about Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't because they wanted it for themselves. It's because they were so eager to be back in the saddle, so to say, that relationship should be back where it should have been. Therefore, they didn't think about Moshe Rabbeinu. So that's a positive, it's not a negative. And because of that, that's why it was a criticism on the Nasiim. If you people would have understood it the way that everybody understood it, what do you mean? You're going to wait for it to be whatever's lacking, we're going to do. But if you understand what this represents, you don't make any cheshbonos. You don't make a calculation. There's no calculation there. You fully should be there immediately. There's no me or I. All that matters is the objective. What's the objective? That the Shekhinah should re-enter and we should be reinstated. So how do you make kind of cheshbon? So what does it say? He says, you're at Salem. It's due to your lackadaisical attitude. Anything we want, there's no atzlus, there's no lackadaisical. You're not lackadaisical. You're there immediately. Because of the understanding what this means, you should have been. How do you make a calculation? So the question is, what about Moshe Rabbeinu? Right? He wants the Shekhinah to be reinstated immediately also. The answer is, but what's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and they? Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah test, he's Onav Mikol Adam. It has nothing to do with him. It has nothing to do with it should be considered he wants it. What he wants is only because what Hashem wants. There's no me. There's only God. Because he's negated totally. Then to see him have a sense of self. So if you have a sense of self, so for yourselves, you should have been there immediately. How do you make this calculation? That you made a calculation, that's your ego. The ego wants, regardless of how important it is, you come first. Because you come first, that's the criticism. As a result of that, Nisim is written, deleted, to indicate this failing, which has no relevance to Moshe Rabbeinu. So now we understand, he says, although the people are anxious and they're doing it with zeal and alacrity because of the value, why are they doing all this? Because it's for the sake of the Shekhinah. Because they want to be reinstated. So maybe that should be an overriding fact. Just as when the Mishkan existed, we find many activities which are not permitted are permitted. Slaughtering, burning, kindling. It's all permitted in the Beis HaMikdash or in the Mishkan. Why? Because you're doing it for the sake of God. So here also, creating the Mishkan, do all this creative activity is for the sake of the Shekhinah. Hashem says, Osli Migdosh Shechanti B'tocha, make for me the sanctuary, I should dwell in your midst. The answer is, that, as I said, Rameh Sip says, once it existed, the Shekhinah is here, it's obvious. It has nothing to do with you, it's for the Shekhinah. Here, it's not obvious. Factually, it's a breach of the Shabbos. Although you're doing it for God. Doesn't make a difference. Therefore, Hashem says to Moshe, tell them, you tell them. Because Moshe, even more than anybody. I mean, you say, what do you mean you tell them? Daber. I mean, the whole Torah is from Moshe Rabbeinu. Ato. That you're concerned more than anybody that they should be back where they were. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu break the luchos? Why did he break the first set of tablets? Because Moshe Rabbeinu understood, the Gemara tells us, when he broke the tablets, Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Yashikoch Choshet Shibarto. I give you a Yashikoach that you broke the tablets. Because if you wouldn't have, Klaus would have been destroyed. It would have been considered an act of adultery under the chuppah. That was considered like an annulment of the relationship. So Moshe Rabbeinu wants a Klal Yisrael to exist at that special level more than anyone. Therefore, you who have that understanding of how important it is to be reinstated, you should communicate them. Despite that, you don't violate the Shabbos for that objective. Despite that. Why? But what's Shabbos? Ki osi beini v'nechem. We said every Shomer v'Yisrael Shabbos. It's a sign between me and you. Then it says, Lodas, ki ani Hashem Kadosh. To know that I am Hashem so sanctified. Who's Lodas is for us to know or for the world to know? Rashi, Kosi beinim nechem, os geduli beinenu shebacharti bochem. This is a sign of distinction that I chose you. That I gave you the day of my rest, that you should represent me, that's the indication that I chose you to be my people. That you are my representation, to be the testament to the world that I rested on Shabbos. Ladas, who should know? We should know, Ladas ha'umos, that the world should know. Ki ani Hashem mekadishchem. It's not something we grabbed. I mean, we are somebody that they're not. Hashem chose us to be his testament. But why? Because he chose us. Because we have a capacity they don't have. As a result of that, it's a sign of distinction in the eyes of the world that they should recognize that, even though they don't. Right? The Christians, they have their day of rest. The Muslims, they have their day of rest because they believe they are the chosen. The Muslims, the whole story with the Akedah, they call it Akedah Shishmoyel. The Muslims, they have the story. It wasn't Yitzchak who was brought as a sacrifice. It was Ishmael. They have the New Testament. L'havdil elef havdolos. The only way you can have that relationship is only through what they believe in. Therefore, they have a day of rest. But their day of rest is not our day of rest. L'havdil elef havdolos. Shabbos is osi bein ni b'nechem. We say at Shabbos, a person who's not a Jew does not rest on the Shabbos. The Shabbos is not given to him. The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, Akum Sheshavos Chayv Misa, that a non-Jew observes the Shabbos, he's liable for the death penalty. Why? Because it was given to us, not to them. One time, if a person wore an army uniform and he was not in the armed forces and he would wear the insignia on the uniform of the United States Army, it was considered an offense. He'd be imprisoned. I mean, how do you represent somebody that you're not? L'havdil. Osi beini v'nechem. But it's a sign. I chose you because you represent me. Because I sanctified you. What is Shabbos? We discussed this many. What is Shabbos? Shabbos, the Gemara tells us, is Be'en Olam Haba. It has a semblance of the world to come. What's the world to come? The world to come is a relationship with Hashem. You're exposed to the Shekhinah. Only the Jew who has that special kind of neshama, which happened at Sinai. Our neshama has a level of commonality with Hashem. That's Ani Hashem Kadishchem. We're called Goy Kodosh. Why are we called Goy Kodosh? A holy people. Because wherever Hashem is, that's the basis for Kedusha. When Hashem brought heaven to earth on Sinai, the mountain was holy. Whatever Hashem is associated with at that level becomes holy. The burning bush, the ground was holy because the Shekhinah was there. The mountain was holy because the Shekhinah was there. Once the Shekhinah ascended, it was an ordinary mountain. We would take and see Goy Kodosh, that's eternally. We received a dimension of spirituality. That dimension has relevance to Hashem, to be able to cleave to him. The non-Jews in the Neshama doesn't have that. So that I gave you the Shabbos, which is Me'en Olam Haba, to be the testament to the world that I chose you to sanctify you, that's for you and not for them. Through that, they will know who you are. But they don't recognize that. They don't value that. It doesn't make a difference. So therefore, Akum Sheshavos Chaim Visa. It's a misrepresentation. You're saying you're the prince, but you're not the prince. Only the Jews the prince. So the Ladas is Umas Olam. It's interesting. It says in the Medrash, when we left Egypt, we left Mitzrayim, we were engulfed with the Anei HaKavod, the clouds of glory. And when we traveled, during the day, it was a pillar of cloud. And nighttime, it was a pillar of fire. to give us direction how to travel. We traveled day and night. And the cloud of fire illuminated the nighttime. So the Medrash says, when that cloud of fire traveled in front of us, the whole world was aware of it, that Hashem was illuminating the way on behalf of Klal Yisrael. What was the value of that? The value of that, the Medrash says, was that the world should know. Whoever heard a king leading his people? Hashem, the Shekhinah itself, that was the Shekhinah. That was the divine presence leading us continuously. The world should know how important the Jewish people are. And this is pre-Sinai. Pre-Sinai. And as for knowing that God himself is offering this accommodation on himself to understand how they should revere us and value us because of the relationship that we have with Hashem. Rather than revering us and valuing us, what do? They issue decrees and they kill us and torture us. So this is a basis of condemnation on the world. And this is pre-Sinai. What about Sinai? Sinai, the Shabbos was given. It was given to a degree in Morah, but fully fleshed out at Sinai. Osi beni v'nechem. Lodas, the world should know who you are. So that they don't recognize this. And they say, they're it, we're not. That's another basis. That's a more advanced level of condemnation on the world. To the contrary, in the when they established the Simon Wiesenthal Center, they started to build all these Holocaust centers all over the United States. Never again that the world should know what happened, because it's only because they weren't aware what was going on during the Holocaust. Therefore, the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews at a level which is not to be believed. It was a demonic type of behavior. Never again. You tell me what's going on right now. What happened? Does the world care? This is all pre-Mashiach. There's going to be a day of reckoning on the world, and the world knows what it is, and they remain silent, and they criticize whatever they criticize. You have no right. You have no right. Whoever heard of such a thing? The day of judgment will come. Every nation of the world, the majority of them, they're going to be actually condemned, and they're going to go into the oblivion because of this. Hashem is giving everybody their chance. They arrested this guy at Columbia, who actually was the agitator, who led it. They said, the judge, you have no right to deport him. You ever hear of such a thing? The man represents something which is atrocity beyond, and he wants it. Bring this to the United States, disrupting everything. And there's an opposition to this. You ever hear of such a thing? Again, this is the condemnation on the world. All these people. Osi beni v'nechem. It's as obvious as the sun is shining, and yet they still don't see it. They don't get it. And that's what anti-Semitism is. That's Esav Soni Yaakov. Shmartem says Shabbos. You must observe the Shabbos. Why? Ki kodesh lachem. Because it's kodesh, it's holy for you. And therefore, machalei yomos, the one who desecrates it will be put to death. Ki kol ha'osa b'malocha, one who does the malocha, this creative activity, v'nichras hanefshei mikerav amel, that soul will be cut off, excised from the midst of its people. Why must you observe the Shabbos? Ki kodesh lachem. It's sanctified for you.
Rabbi.
Gemara tells us in Chulin that normally a person doesn't observe the Torah, and he is aware of the transgression, he crosses the line. It's called the mummer. Mum. He's not doing it out of defiance. He enjoys eating McDonald's burgers. And he knows he shouldn't, but he says, look, I wouldn't do it, but because I desire that burger, therefore I eat the burger. Or to eat in a particular steakhouse or particular non-kosher product. That's called mumel davar echad. He's an apostate in that area. What about a person who doesn't observe Shabbos? A Jew doesn't observe Shabbos. He knows it's not permitted, but he says, like they used to say, the busiest day of the week is Saturday. He keeps his business open. And he doesn't observe Shabbos. The Gemara says, a person who's mechal Shabbos, he's mumel chol Torah kula. He's considered an apostate as if he's rejecting the whole Torah. A mechal Shabbos is considered like an oved avodah zarah. It's like a person who's a pagan, an idolater. Why? What's the reason? So Rashi explains to Chulin, because what is Shabbos? Shabbos is, we're a testament to the world that Hashem is the creator. A Jew who chooses not to keep the Shabbos, you know what he's saying? It's totally irrelevant. You're supposed to be a testament that Hashem's the creator, and you turn your back, say, it's totally irrelevant. It's irrelevant that he's the creator. Therefore, as a result of that, it's like denying his existence. What's an idolater? You believe God is not the one who's actually willing every aspect of existence. It's a deity. That's a pagan. By not observing the Shabbos, say, God is irrelevant. Whether he's the creator, not the creator. And therefore, you cross those lines. Therefore, he's a mumul chol Torah kula. Therefore, he's an apostate as if he denies the whole Torah. You must observe it ki kodeshi lochem, because it's holy for you. You were chosen to be that. That's to indicate that. Because we have that commonality. You chose that Sinai to be the Goy Kodosh. And you are that representation. Because only you have relevance to who I am. Because the objective of all creation is the world to come. As it says in Pirkei Avos, this is only a prosdor. This is only a corridor to ultimately to arrive where we're supposed to arrive. Therefore, you must observe it. The Najr is not the testament. Therefore, it's not observing it. It's not a statement about anything. But we were chosen to this, to indicate what the objective of creation is. He created this as the pass-through to arrive there. Denying that means you deny his existence. Therefore, for that, the person deserves the death penalty. At what level of death penalty? We have 4 levels. Skila. Skila is the most severe level of death penalty. I mean, Ato Echod, V'Shimcha Echod. You are one. Your name is one. Umi Kamcha Yisrael Goy Echod Boretz. And who's like your people, Israel? There's only one such people in existence in the land. This is the commonality. You Echod, we're Echod. Tiferes Gdul Teres Yeshua. Yom Menucha Kedusha Lamcha Nasato. The day of rest and the day of holiness to your people you gave. Avram Yogel. Avram rejoices. Yitzchak Yeraning, also a level of joy, rejoicing. Yaakov and Yiduchabo. Yaakov and his children, they rest on that day. Menuchas Avav and Nudavo. It's menucha of love and givingness. The menucha we were given. It's a menucha of love and Nudavo. Hashem gave us the day of his rest. What does that say? That's Be'en Olam Haba. Menuchas emes ve'emuna. It's the menucha of truth and faith. Menucha shalom v'shalva. Of peace and shalva. Tranquility. Hashkit v'etach. Calmness and security. Menucha shleimosh ta'torot. You want an absolute menucha. Yakir v'necha v'yedu. Your children will recognize and know. This is it. Ki mi'itcha hi menuchasam. This menucha is from you. And due to that menucha, they will sanctify your name. What does it mean, due to that menucha? Because we have relevance to that menucha, therefore we're in a position to sanctify Hashem's name. The obligation of Kiddush Hashem, because we represent God, and we are Hashem's representatives, and we have this commonality. Therefore, because of that menucha, we sanctify. Therefore, observing the Shabbos would tell you where this is. L'man yedu dorasechem. that the world should know who we are, that we have something, we were chosen. We are God's representation. Kim nuchosam yakdusha shmecho.